You know, I've talked to all types of people. I've had conversations with communists on my show and socialists, and weirdly, like, that never seems to be an issue, which is very strange in a way, because it's like, I mean, you could make an argument communism is the worst ideology ever. It's responsible for like 100 million deaths in the 20th century. It's still responsible for the oppression of people in Cuba and in North Korea, maybe quasi in Venezuela. But with Nick Fuentes particularly in this moment, what's so funny to me about it is it's like, guys, we ran the experiment of trying to censor Nick Fuentes. When I say we, I don't mean me. I never believed in that, and I had him on my podcast, you know, back in the day too. But this guy is huge. It's just undeniable. He is huge. So at this point, you're just saying, would you like to not have a conversation about this? Look, I think there are lots of bad ideas all over the place. I always err on the side of sitting down and having a conversation is better than putting people in silence, trying to squash people. And look, Nick Fuentes was one of the most censored people in the country, and he's bigger than ever right now. So clearly that didn't work, and now we're having conversations.
Yeah.
And Seth, you know, we simultaneously, you mentioned the Charlie Kirk thing, Seth. One of the
Seth was fully on board with them debanking Nick too. Don't let him try and weasel out of it. He's been a Zionist since day one. He was all for Nick Fuentes being debanked. I think he was all for the ones with Alex Jones as well. He is not on our side. So don't let him nod here and pretend like he's on our side. He ain't.
I'll ask you specifically about what Candace Owens has been doing around Charlie Kirk's murder. Many people think she is deliberately fueling pretty insane conspiracy theories linking Israel to the murder and so on. You've been dragged into some of this stuff, I know. What is your response to what Candace has been doing? Because she has a massive platform. She's getting these views amplified to a lot of people.
I think it's despicable in the same way that you think what Alex Jones was doing was despicable, for the same reason. You have people who are close friends and family members and associates, colleagues of Charlie Kirk, who loved him very dearly and are in the middle of mourning and grieving the loss of their friend, somebody that they love, and the spotlight of suspicion is being shined on them, and they're being accused of playing some kind of role in a cover-up.
Oh no. Suspicion is being shined on people during an active murder investigation. Oh, fuck. What are we going to do? Tough shit. Just toughen up, because this is a murder investigation. Till we know what happened for sure, you're just going to have to deal with it. Sorry.
And you need to have, you know, in order to leverage accusations like that, or even just insinuations, if you're not alleging it and you're just kind of like, you know, here's the dots, you guys go connect them. You have to have some evidence. You have to have some reason for thinking that's the case, not just that you feel it. You know, we don't know, but we know that we know, is something that she said. You know, it's just, you can't go by your gut feelings. You can't go to what, you know, your dreams and what your dreams told you, and then go down this dark path of trying to vilify and smear people who had nothing but love for Charlie, and would have, some of them I know very personally. You know, Frank Turek was there standing by Charlie's side. He's been caught up in some of this stuff, and he's been in the crosshairs of Candace just recently. And, you know, he would have put himself between that bullet and Charlie if he could have. He loved Charlie like a son. And so, you know, the grief is compounded by all of this. But just a step back real quick to the thing about, you know, Fuentes on Tucker's show. I agree with Dave. Maybe you're surprised that we agree on so much, but I agree with Dave about Tucker having every right to talk to whoever he wants to. I also agree that when you censor people and you try to suppress their voices, in many cases, you only make them louder. I mean, look what happened with the Babylon Bee. I think we're more popular today than ever. We have a bigger following than ever because there were all these efforts to censor and suppress our voice. It backfired pretty spectacularly. Drag the bad ideas out into the sunlight, engage with them, confront them. And this is my criticism of the interview with Nick Fuentes, is that there wasn't confrontation. Nick has said terrible things. Nick has said things like, you know, he wants to, when we get into power, all these atheists and these heretics and these perfidious Jews, they deserve the death penalty. They need to be executed. You know, he's glorified Hitler and said that he's really cool, really effing cool, actually.
You're on a debate show, and Nick is a professional debater. I think there would be a good way for you to get all that aggression out that you have for him. Why don't you grow some nuts and debate him? Oh, you don't want to. You don't want to. He's beneath you. I got you.
You know, he's in the conversation with Tucker. He talked about his admiration for Stalin, who's responsible for tens of millions of deaths. And so, to gloss over all of that, to not challenge it and confront it. Tucker is so good. He was so good when he would have Democrats on, leftists, liberals that he disagreed with. He would mock them. He'd make them look foolish. He would ridicule and refute their ideas.
This guy's not getting it. Maybe those people were foolish and he just exposed it. And maybe Nick Fuentes isn't foolish, so he can't expose that. Like, if you want to interview Nick, go fucking interview him, but stop bitching about how everyone else does it.
And they stopped coming back because they were so embarrassed because he made them look so foolish. I'd like to see Tucker do that with bad ideas on the right. Why isn't he doing that? The only reasonable conclusion that you can draw.
Maybe they're not bad ideas. Maybe he would if they were bad ideas, but he doesn't think they're bad ideas, so he doesn't do that. Isn't that easy to understand?
All for not challenging Nick in more substantive ways is that he doesn't disagree with him.
Right. I mean, I've had a few big toe-to-toes with Tucker, and he is, he's normally comes at you like a firecracker. And what was noticeable about the Fuentes one was he had a very different tone with him. And like you say, Seth, you can take that as tacit agreement with what Fuentes is saying. If you don't think.
It's like they don't understand. Whenever Tucker was able to go after somebody, he had ammunition to do so. If he didn't have any ammunition, he didn't. Like what is he going to say? What could he say if he doesn't disagree with him? There's not any magic thing to make someone look foolish. You just have to make them look foolish because they're foolish.
Vigorously take it on and challenge it in the moment.
What
Dave,
Nick is trying to do is become more mainstream. Sorry, Nick is trying to become more mainstream.
Right. Yeah.
He's moderating a little bit. He's trying to distinguish himself from people who are further right than he is.
Good point.
And Tucker's helping him with that. Why? You want to ask that question. If we're asking questions, just asking questions, I want to.
There I go thinking they're humans again. My bad. You're right.
Know why Tucker is trying to mainstream Nick Fuentes instead of saying, look, you have radical, terrible ideas that have no part in the conservative movement. You're collectivist in your ideology. You're racist. You're bigoted in terrible ways. You've said horrible, disgusting things. I don't want you in my movement. Why isn't that Tucker's posture towards someone like Nick Fuentes?
Because that's how you feel. People can't understand. Why isn't this interviewer just saying the shit I think? Because he's not you. Why don't you go do it? Why don't you go interview him? It's so fucking crazy.
At a certain point, just to be clear again, there's no evidence that Tucker was trying to mainstream Nick Fuentes. What happened here is Nick Fuentes became mainstream. Like, that's just
especially
the reality. And anybody can look at this. Like, this is just looking at numbers. It's not like an opinion. He's about as big as anybody in this world right now, up there with them. And in terms of, no, you cannot deduce. Look, I had a socialist, Ben Burgess, on my podcast years ago, because he wrote this book, and it was called something like, Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. And the book was about how there's all these left-wingers who were caught up in cancel culture at the time, canceling Louis C.K. and all these guys. Look, we still don't have universal health care or universal, all this stuff. And I just interviewed him about the book because I thought it was a really interesting topic. And I didn't argue with him, but you can't deduce from that I believe in socialism. And in fact, what Tucker did on the show was make the point against Jew hatred and make the point against racial collectivism at all, and saying flat out that is just unchristian and that Christians must judge people as individuals, and that it's not a cuck move to say it's not the Jews, that you have to talk specific. And the truth is, Nick didn't really give him pushback on that. Now, you could say that is Nick trying to moderate his views or something like that, but I don't exactly know why that's a bad thing. I think I'd probably rather people say, yeah, it's not all the Jews. There are different specific people. But to the bigger point here.
But most of them are that religion, just to be clear, though.
I think look, when you say, there's these people with conspiracy theories, they're not connecting dots. Again, yes, that's true. It's also prevalent everywhere. Every single day, Mark Levin gets on Twitter and tweets Tucker Carlson. That's what he calls them every single day. What is that other than a ridiculous conspiracy? There's never been a shred of evidence. Laura Loomer, the most disingenuous person on the internet, once produced a document that said that a group in Qatar was trying to facilitate an interview with Tucker Carlson and a Qatari leader. There's no evidence that Tucker Carlson, the man in his 50s with tons of money, started going on the payroll of Qatar. This stuff is everywhere. And, I would just say that when you say, hey, there are certain views, like I find Alex Jones' view on Sandy Hook disgusting. I find Nick Fuentes' views on race disgusting, or something like that. Okay, look, if I'm being completely honest, I find your views on Gaza disgusting. But whatever, man, let's still sit down and talk about it, because what else are we going to do? I mean, how many options do we really have here? We can fight, we can go to war, or we can try to argue this like civilized men and see who's more persuaded by our case. And for all you guys, say whatever you will about Nick Fuentes. You know, I've known him over the years. I don't know him super well, but I do know him. And full disclosure, I got to admit, I kind of like him. I disagree with him on a lot of things, and he disagrees with me on a lot of things. One thing I cannot say about him, he is willing to debate. So when you sit here, Seth, and you're like, Tucker should have handled him like this, Tucker should have screamed bigot at him the whole time, why don't you give that a shot? I bet he'd do it. Give it a shot. See how that goes. See who can persuade more people. Well, I actually don't think that's a very effective way of dealing with anyone's ideas.
All right. Well, a couple of things there. First, Nick is becoming more mainstream, and the question is whether or not that's a good thing. You know, I would argue that it's a bad thing that Nick is becoming more mainstream, and that any roadblocks you can put in his path, I think gatekeeping is a good thing. I think it's what keeps movements healthy. It's you keep the rot out, you keep the bad ideas at bay. You know, and I think
the ideas you can't contend with is what he's trying to say here. You don't want to say that because it'll make his point look worse, but the real reason is you got to keep out the people who are going to just destroy you in debates, because then they're going to get their way and you're not. So you got to shut them down to where we don't even have debates with them. So that's what he's trying to do here. That's what they always try to do. They pretend like they're for free speech, and then they pull shit like that.
That Tucker has a moral responsibility to do that in a position that he's in. So I would disagree with you that, you know, it's just fine that Nick is becoming. You may like Nick Fuentes. I think his ideas are absolutely terrible. I don't want to see them adopted, and I certainly don't believe that he's being
but not enough to debate him on them. Not that much. Fuck no.
Honest when he tries to moderate and present himself as more reasonable than he is. I think that's a ploy. I think it's a game that he's playing, and to act like that's a good thing. No, it's actually a really bad thing that we're letting him get away with that instead of challenging that. You have to actually hold his feet to the fire and say, these are the things that you've actually said. Do you stand by them or not? Tucker wasn't willing to do that. So I think that's very problematic.
Okay, but again, so I'm not exactly clear, because before you said he should be having this conversation. Now you're saying he has an obligation to gatekeep and he shouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, look, the way I look at it
is
like this.
No, the gatekeeping is done with the conversation. The conversation is the gatekeeping. Right. The conversation is saying, look, your ideas are bad.
But look, yeah, but I think your ideas are bad. So you don't get to dictate how everybody else has conversations. Sorry, you don't have that authority over other people. So you don't get to do it.
Yeah,
but
I'm not claiming to have the authority to dictate what. I'm not saying.
That is literally what he just claimed. He just said that he's mad because Tucker wouldn't just say mean shit to Nick through the whole interview. So why don't you do that?
Tucker had no obligation. Tucker has no obligation to do anything that I want him to do. I'm saying I believe there's a way things should be. I'm saying it shouldn't be the case that Nick should be mainstreamed. If I was in Tucker's shoes, I would have held his feet to the fire. I'm asking the question, why didn't he? I would like to know why he didn't. I think that we all have a moral obligation to push back on bad ideas. Now, you think my ideas are bad, so yeah, you're going to want to challenge them. Well,
and we're all wondering why you're not going to go do it. Like, you still haven't given a really good explanation of that. Like, if Tucker should have done it, why can't you go do it? It's the same thing. You're in a similar position.
I think that it would have been a responsible thing and a good thing for the conservative movement if someone as prominent as Tucker, with as large of audience as he has, if he was standing in the way of Nick Fuentes becoming more mainstream, I think that would be a good thing for everybody. And I'm disappointed that it didn't.
No, it would be a good thing for you, and that's all that matters to you.
But he's free to do whatever he wants to do.
Okay,
I'm free to criticize him for not handling the interview the way that I think it should have been responsibly handled. I think it was extremely irresponsible.
Okay. Certainly you're free to criticize them. You know, I would say that for all the people, by the way, who are so upset that Candace and Nick Fuentes have become so huge, like, honestly, dude, talking to guys like you have no one but yourself to blame for that. It's all over the Israel issue, man. And the reason why they got so much support behind them is because they were against this destruction of Gaza. It was just like the most horrible, inexcusable thing ever. But let me ask you a question, just because I think this is kind of interesting. So you're saying you have a responsibility to push back against bad ideas. Just the other week, I know both you and your partner over at Babylon Bee, Joel, I believe is his name.
Joel Berry?
Upset with. Yes. So you got very upset with me because I said, when I basically had a tweet where I said something like, look, it's good the ceasefire happened. Less people are dying. There are hostage swaps taking place. That's great. Let's hope, for the best. Something like that. And both of you guys got very upset at me for using the term hostage swaps. And Joel said, you're describing innocent Israelis being held he said, on the Gaza side, it's nothing but innocent people. On the Israeli side, it's all terrorists. Now, I pointed out that 1,700 of the people that Israel released were just people that they grabbed and were holding without charges, something Israel's been doing for many, many decades. He referred to all of them as terrorists with no shred of evidence. Like, that to me sounds pretty bigoted, to just assume that every Palestinian is automatically a terrorist. Did you push back on that at all when your colleague, your partner said that? See, my point is, look, obviously it's a rhetorical question. You didn't. But the point is that, yes, it's easy to say you should push back against bad ideas. But when you start from the starting point that your ideas are correct. Look, I think Nick has some bad ideas. I think you supporting Israel's destruction of Gaza is substantially worse than any of his views. And so, him and Tucker had a falling out. This was them coming back together.
I support the right of Israel to defend itself against terrorism. And, they're...
Nick's views didn't get like 40,000 children murdered in Gaza, did they? So maybe yours are worse.
They're at war with people who want to see them wiped off the map. I think there's a distinction between, genocide, which I think is an inaccurate term for what's being done, just warfare. The effort that's been made to try to reduce civilian casualties has been significant. There's standards that are applied to Israel that aren't applied to anybody else in these things. I would distinguish.
More don't believe your eyes, believe what this lying Zionist tells you. More of that. Cool.
Between the hostages that were taken on October 7th and the prisoners that Israel is holding. We can have that's not really the topic of this conversation, but we disagree about what the bad ideas are.
Though.
We did no, it's not, because what we're talking about is that we all have our own view of what the bad ideas are. We all have the freedom to engage in a discussion about that. That's what the free marketplace of ideas is. It's where the good and the bad clash, right? Where we both voice our own opinion about what that is and try to hash that out and try to arrive at the truth. Those are healthy conversations. I'm not calling for an end to any of those conversations. My criticism of Tucker Carlson, for example, is a contribution to the discussion, not an attempt to end the discussion. And I don't appreciate it being characterized as censorship by everybody who's saying that I'm calling for censorship. That's the last thing I'm calling for.
No, I wasn't saying you're calling for censorship.
You were just saying how we need more gatekeeping. What are you fucking talking about?
I'm just making the point. Sure, go ahead, Piers. Sorry.
I was going to just say on this wider question of Israel, we've seen in the last couple of days a flare-up which has not ended the ceasefire, but it appears that Hamas, or they say it was a group they weren't in contact with when it happened, killed an IDF soldier, and Netanyahu responded with huge force, but has now stopped the bombing relatively quickly compared to what we've seen before, and the ceasefire remains intact. And you have the Qatari Prime Minister acting as a mediator as part of this process, saying that the fault lay initially with the Palestinian group, as he put it, who killed the IDF soldier. We're going to see these flare-ups, but do you believe that the overarching ceasefire can actually succeed here? And what does the future look like?
I mean, that is the big question, right, Pierce? And it's tough. I don't know why. I got little kids, so I don't know why this is the image I keep. But like when a little kid has a loose tooth and like right before the tooth falls out, and it's just like it's hanging on by the tiniest little thread. Like it's basically all. I mean, that's where the ceasefire is right now. Like officially they're saying it hasn't been broken, but oof, man, are we really, really close? Look, I wish I could be more optimistic about it. I think that.
I wouldn't even want a ceasefire with Israel. All that means is they're about to kill some people, right? Every time you hear ceasefire and Israel in the same sentence, some people fucking died.
There's a lot of fundamentals on the ground that make it very unlikely for this to lead to a lasting peace. But one of the dynamics that I'm most concerned about probably, and you've done a lot of covering this over the last year or so, Piers, but there have been both Netanyahu himself, the longest serving prime minister and current prime minister in Israeli history, he's said recently that the Greater Israel Project is near and dear to his heart. Obviously, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and others in the government have talked about ethnically cleansing the Gazans out of Gaza, taking it over themselves. Donald Trump, there's this weird standoff, right, where Donald Trump finally said, I don't think I've ever heard a U.S. president say before, that they would cut off all funding and support for Israel. And he said, if they tried to annex the West Bank. And then when J.D. Vance is in Israel, they hold a vote in the Knesset and vote to annex the West Bank. Now, I think the dynamic here is this. Are those guys going to give up on this plan when they know these are not stupid people, Piers? They know damn well that they have lost the entire young generation. Like over here in America, in terms of people who watch these debates all this time, it's over. My side has won the debate. The support for Israel has evaporated, and they know that. And so in a way, I think they know that this is their moment. They've got the most pro-Israel administration in the history of the United
This was 8 months ago. Think about where it's at now.
States of America, and they know that in the future they will not have this level of support. So if they were going to make a move to ethnically cleanse the rest of the Palestinians out of Gaza, if they were going to make a move to officially annex the West Bank, which has already, essentially been annexed, this might be the time that they feel like they got to go for it. And so that's a big question. I'm not saying I know that that's the case. I hope it's not, but I am very concerned about that.
Seth, what's your response to that?
Well, I have my doubts about whether or not.
This dude's a lot better when he has a meme he can put up. Like, he's not good in debates, but he's good at picking out memes to put up. Like, that's what he should be doing.
Ceasefire can hold in this situation because both sides have their own interests to protect. I think that I don't know if you did, Dave. I would ask you because I'm not sure if you did or not. But were you objecting to Hamas dragging people through the streets and executing them after the ceasefire was announced and Israel started to withdraw? And we're talking about concern for civilians and people that are being slaughtered in the streets. Like, did you express any outrage about that when that was happening?
Yeah, I did, but I just
I'm
find
asking
it.
honestly.
Yeah, well, right. So just to answer your question, yes, I did, and I find it just hilarious that you guys who have been supporting the destruction of Gaza somehow don't see your own hypocrisy when you turn around and go, "Oh my God, people are dying."
I've never supported the destruction of Gaza.
I don't.
I've never once supported the destruction of Gaza. I wish that none of it had ever happened.
Okay, well, Gaza's been destroyed, and you've been supporting Israel's right to defend itself the entire time. So what?
Right to defend yourself until all those buildings are rubble. Okay, that building wasn't going to do nothing to you.
Does that add up to?
Yeah, that's not supporting the destruction of Gaza.
I condemn Hamas. I condemn killing people. People should have a right to a fair trial. I treat people with the presumption of innocence. So even if Hamas says that those were collaborators, sorry, they deserve some type of fair trial or something, just like those 1,700 people that your buddy called terrorists. I treat them with the presumption of innocence too.
Okay. Well, you also like Nick Fuentes and don't have anything to say about him.
So that's his answer. I think I want people to have a right to be presented as innocent until proven guilty. Oh yeah, well you like Nick Fuentes too. How is that a fucking answer to what he just said? You like Nick Fuentes too. So fucking what?
His bad ideas. So it's just weird to get
No,
like a moral superiority coming.
I got a lot to say about his bad ideas. What are you talking about, man? Look, I believe what I believe. Obviously, if anyone's ever listened to me, do I say the same stuff he does? No, we have different views.
Well, why do you like him? Why do you like him? Why do you defend Nick Fuentes? Why do you like him if you hate his ideas so much?
I don't know. I mean, like, I hate a lot of Pierce's ideas, and I like him. Pierce was for gun control. He's a dirty Brit coming over to my country trying to round up the guns. I'd still love to grab a beer with him.
Yeah, but he's never called for the execution of atheists, heretics, and perfidious Jews. He doesn't say that they should, burn in ovens. And
oh, Nick called for it, and no one listened. And your fucking people just go murder everybody. So that's much better, isn't it?
Glorify Hitler. I mean, he hasn't gone that far, has he? I don't think Piers has said anything like that. I don't know why you'd want to be friends with somebody who has those kinds of views.
I have not gone that far, no.
Not that far, not yet. Well, look, I mean,
no, I
have one more question for you. I want to know what Dave thinks about Tucker essentially calling Charlie Kirk a heretic by saying that anybody who's a Christian Zionist is a heretic. I mean, that was Charlie Kirk, was it not?
Another little Hasbara trick here. Yeah, he said something bad about these group of people, and now this dead guy is in that group of people. So now he's saying it about him. Get the fuck out of here, dude. What the fuck is that?
Okay, but I mean, I think obviously he's speaking about evangelical Christians in general and saying that this violates the Bible, like to make it about.
Yeah,
Charlie Kirk,
that's a circle that Charlie Kirk fits inside. It applies to him.
Okay, but
cheap Israeli trick, just like I told you.
So he's criticizing a view that Charlie Kirk had. Yeah, I disagreed with Charlie on that too. So what's your point?
He said he hates those people more than he said he hates those people more than anybody else and called them heretics. And yet he spoke at Charlie Kirk's memorial so glowingly. How do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, he obviously didn't hate Charlie Kirk. There you go. This is come on. This is like ridiculous. Yes, he's making a point that he thinks that actually the Christians who put Israel above their own government and believe that like only Jesus can come back if the Jews control the area, that is goofy, and I agree.
Yeah. Well, if you say you hate people that have Charlie's views, then you're saying you hate Charlie.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't.
Good. If that's the argument you want to go with, okay. I don't know what that means, but hey, listen.
All right.
Man,
But listen,